What I have here is a StarFinalFrtwCurwk with current week comparison for the date of 4/1/2015. What I've done is basically, you will notice here, I have a master compare and then locations, which I will explain here in a moment. But in the master compare, what I've done is created a side-by-side comparison of your information from your StarFinalFrtwCurwk with current week on the left, and then my sublog version on the right of the StarFinalFrtwCurwk with current week. And what I've done is arranged all of the files in each location side by side by name so that we have a true side-by-side comparison. So what we will do is go ahead and begin with one of the city locations, franchise locations that we have worked out. So let's go ahead and start with Dallas by selecting it. And it's basically this location's side-by-side comparison. What you'll see here is like I said, on the left is all of your StarFinalFrtwCurwk with current week, and on the right is my StarFinalFrtwCurwk with current week. It's for Dallas, this date. This framed in area in the middle, I will explain in a moment. But what I have done is, in the yellow areas right here, I have brought down totals. I've auto-summed cost, amount, and margin dollar. Did the same here to the other set of data, and then these totals right here in the middle, which are cost difference, amount difference, and margin difference, are totals from the yellow areas. So what I've done here is basically created this minus this equals this. So this matched up, so it's green. And that's why it's green, because it matched up. There's zero difference. Here, in the amount, we have a difference of 8,385, and in the margin difference, we have 8,339, and that's not correct. So this is what I've done to visually try to find the problem. Okay, so the reason for this side-by-side comparison for me was to determine where the problems were with the accounts that weren't matching up, causing these differences down here. These differences. This area, which is the middle area that I will now explain, is the true side-by-side comparison. What I've done is an auto-sum for the red areas here, because this matched up, so there's no need to look for anything. That's why this area is blank. But the amount and the margin have negative numbers in it. That's not right. So I want to try to find out why I'm getting this amount in the amount difference and this amount in the margin difference. So what I've done is a true side-by-side add sum for each account, Jupiter, Jupiter, so on and so forth. And if they match, they come up 0. If they don't, it's one has an account sum that's different than from the other. So, and I did all of these cities that had the biggest differences. There'll be areas like this that have negative numbers and positive numbers, but the reason they're in there visually is because they cancel each other out. So if you sum up your positives, like for instance, negative 977.50 and negative 82.50 equal the same amount as this positive. Same here. The two positives end up adding up to that negative number. So they cancel each other out. They're both from this concept surfaces, except on this side, the total was summed up into one account, and over here they were broken down into individual accounts. This will happen throughout all of them, but as long as they match up, the data is correct. But this is correct, so that's why it's not marked red. Anything marked red in the center area is where the problem is. So these, because there's no accountability to cancel it out. So right here, this account is already half of the issue, $4,885.75 for both our margin dollar and our amount. And it's because this account reads the data this way, and on this side it reads it that way. When I come up to these, I check the data, both of these, in the subblob version that I have, which is from WexNet, subblob 2015, and also my StarFinalFrtwCurrentweek. I've marked this green because when I compare it to the data that I have, this is correct. When I compare this version to the data I have, it is incorrect. That's why I marked it red. So you'll notice some things are marked green on certain sides. This means that I've checked the data in the sublobs and they exist as they are seen in the green area. The red is incorrect. As I create each of these locations side-by-side comparison and mark the data, the orphan data or the incorrect data that's causing the actual number differences, I look for a pattern. So I look for a pattern in each of them, and there's several that happen over and over for each one. So I believe it's something in the macro that's possibly some of the issue. So here, let's go to Milwaukee, for instance. Okay. Now look at this one. There's $11,533 difference basically here. And with this comparison, what I found out is one of these is a $10,000 difference already. So it's one account. One account that I'm getting data here from my subblob, right, that says this. And this side says all zeros. I marked it red because when I went into compare in my subblob and the WexNet subblob, what I have over here, once again in the green, is correct. At least matches up with what the source data is giving me. Now, so that's huge. That's 10,000. And then the other one is one other account, which is basically the same thing. It's pulling the data in all zeros here, and I'm getting numbers here. So this has resolved this location of $11,000 already just by finding those two accounts. That's one pattern. You'll notice here that I marked this red, and this is a margin summing issue. On the Howard version here, there's no math being applied to the margin dollars. So this is a cost with zero amount, and it's saying it's zero margin dollar. The math that I applied to the MySQL is basically bringing back a negative margin of that cost because there was no amount. So this is correct. That is a huge one. That is an issue throughout all of these. Every one of these locations has that. There's a couple of other sort of formatting issues here. For instance, here I have all of this difference right here for AdCamp. Remember that. In Howard's, it's not picking it up over here, and I'm picking it up here, two accounts. Well, the reason being is because This is particularly in LA. Hang on. Here we go. See, it's the same numbers, 450, 690 here. That's because this customer number is AdCamp's number, right? So this is the wrong title or the wrong customer name for this customer number, because like when I searched these in the subblob, it determined that it was AdCamp. So this cancels out what's up here, this, because that's see how these are all negative because there's nothing that matches. That's because signal. That's because the one that we just saw here is the wrong customer name. This should be AdCamp, and it's pulling up Signal Outdoors for some reason. And there's a few of those in here, like down here, for instance, we have Walter Salala, who's now has his own location or whatever, West LA too, or you know, this isn't even being pulled up over here. So this is already two accounts that don't exist in this side, and they do exist on that side, and it's correct on this side. As you look through these files, because I'm sending you a version of these files, notice the red. Your main concern are the ones marked red in the middle of each of these locations, because that's what adds up to. These are what add up to any sort of area that has a red difference. If they're green, no concern. If they're red, then we're going to do a side-by-side comparison. A couple of quick notes in closing. I did, anytime there was a UPS account that was in this red zone, red flag area, I would double check this in the anything goes, or like especially if they had zeros. And what I've learned is that the makeup to minimums and the anything goes that have been applied on the version that I make are correct and working, because I ran across a couple and they are applying the anything goes zeros to the right accounts. I would get those accounts and compare them in the anything goes list, and there's no pattern of makeup to minimum issues, which I've checked.